was in residential school. My first, according to those school records, I was in there when I was 3 years old. I was too young. They took me back out and never returned when I was 4. That's where my home was for most of my childhood. And later on, around grade 5 or 6, I came in and out, lived with my mom. And when I attended day school, I kept returning to the residential school. Till the time, about a year before it closed in 69. And then I started attending all for years. So what you hear about residential schools all year, the most hard for us Indigenous peoples that we've heard us was the cultural. We were not allowed to speak our language. We were treated like slaves. Imagine being 4 years old, scrubbing the floor, scrubbing the steps, being told what to say, being told what to eat, being told how to react. In that sense, I never knew about being loved. I never heard it. I never heard it from my parents. I know they loved me, but my mom was tortured a lot in residential school. My mom was in an era when the RCMP just started coming in, but the abuse was so real. And she was in that, her and a couple other ladies, according to records, was the ones that were abused horrifically. And in turn, I never heard her say, I love you. And I never heard that in residential school. And growing up, I'm sharing my personal story. Growing up, I went on to boarding home in Calgary, and the abuse never stopped. I went through abuse just to retain my education. Abuse that you wouldn't think that a person only makes up, but it did happen. You get torn down so much in residential school. Your culture, your mental, your physical, emotional. Growing up in that, I was the only one in the family that attended residential school. It tears you down so much that you grew up reacting to how you're treated. Going forward, I became an alcoholic after I went through a divorce with after I divorced the father of my 4 older children. And I became a chronic alcoholic. I never understood why I was such an alcoholic. I went to treatment 3 times. First 2 times, I left. It wasn't what I was searching for. 3rd time I went back, they talked about Indian residential school. That's where I said, that is what I need. I identified with what was being talked about, and I stayed. Slowly, my journey to sobriety started. It didn't happen overnight, but that's where my journey started. And 2 events happened in my life with my family that changed my life to think about sobriety. But I had to deal with the effects of the residential school in order for me to go on that healing journey. My late grandson was accused of shooting that German tourist. And my family was hated in the community for something that happened at my home that we had nothing to do with. Going forward, I am on a healing journey, still dealing with the effects of residential school. It never leaves. It triggers. Sometimes triggers happen. Certain smells, certain things, the way you're spoken to. I always tell people, maybe that is why our people can't hold on a job, because they are children, there are effects of Indian residential school that can't handle what they're being told all the time and how they're being spoken to. That is a little bit of my life story that I share in conferences. I'm just telling you, sharing a little bit here. Truth and Reconciliation is 10 years now since the calls to action were done by late. The person that was involved in that was late Murray Sinclair. Judge Murray Sinclair. He passed away not too long ago. There were 94 calls to action, with the main ones being child welfare, education, language and culture, health and justice. Now where are we 10 years? It's 10 years anniversary now. Has it happened? What have the calls to action been followed? My personal answer to that as an Indian residential school survivor, no. Sad to say, no. Maybe baby steps here and there, but it's been 10 years now that I don't see it. There's still that resentment. We still need to teach about what really happened. That calls to action was about recognizing what happened to Indian children in Indigenous children in the Indian residential school. And that's Truth and Reconciliation and One Shirt Day came into play. In regards to health, a little bit, but our culture still needs to be exposed within the healthcare system. By culture, I mean, I know steps have been taken for smudges to be involved in the healthcare system. And our own medicinal drinks, some people refuse the Western medicines and take our own drinks in the hospitals. But the doctors are finally starting to understand that part. And that's the good, positive part of our healthcare system. But we still need a long way. I believe we still need to go a long ways. We still have a long ways to go in order to put these calls to action into what they're calling reconciliation. We are still kept as second-class citizens. We are not given the opportunity to run our own systems, like health, education. Yes, steps are being taken, justice reform. A little bit has happened, but not as much as it should be. Some banks have recognized the reconciliation process, but not all banks again. When I walk into RBC in Cochrane, it shows signs of reconciliation, and it makes me feel good. I feel good inside that I feel a part of that bank. I feel that I'm accepted. I feel that, hey, I'm being known as who I am and what I went through. To this day, that's the only bank I've seen that makes me feel a part of Indian residential school. It's the Truth and Reconciliation. I've shared a little bit about my life story, but not from our nation. I believe I was the few youngest ones that were in there, if not the youngest one that was in residential school. When I first worked here, my manager's Lindsay. I always hear this story. She used to have a tone of voice that, of course, I reacted to. I rebelled. I talked back. I told her I quit. I quit twice. Finally, I told her, the way you talk to me triggers. I have been through that through my childhood years. Can you please use another tone of voice or talk to me in a way that I have respect as well? Now we have a relationship that I'm proud to say that she's my manager. When I first started, it wasn't. I always rebelled. Alcoholism always took over whatever I did because I didn't deal with my residential school happenings then. I went 2 years law. I transferred myself to University of Alberta to begin the 5-year journey to become a lawyer. What happened? My dad got sick. I came home. I started drinking. I didn't go back. I got myself expelled from the University of Alberta. I applied to Simon Fraser. I got accepted. Again, I drank. I wrecked my career in law. There went down the drain. I held managerial positions. I held different jobs. I drank and I quit. I kept doing that until I recognized for myself why I was doing that. What is it that's bothering me? It's a personal journey that I'm still on it. I still battle it. But I'm glad to see that I've recognized it and I'm dealing with it. But there are still times that I mentioned that still triggers. It does a lot to a person. It's not an easy thing. Some said, this one person told me, oh, the Holocaust happened. It had the same effects. Yes, it happened. But this residential school happened in Canada. We are supposed to be the landlords in this country. What happened to us? We were taken as slaves. We are slaves to the government. We still are. How do we break that? Put this Truth and Reconciliation acts and calls to action. And then we'll become more proud Indigenous peoples. I have a talk to do this afternoon on the same thing. I have been asked by the healthcare field and other fields to do talks. I did one with 500 doctors, female doctors. This past spring, I told my story. I stopped. When I finished, I looked around. The applause I got, I thought to myself, I never thought I'd be standing here. I was not a person to be speaking in the public. I stood there, they did the applause, and they were crying. Professionals crying from hearing my stories, what really touched my heart. When I go do my talks, I do my own story, my own personal story. I don't go in there and bullshit. Sorry about my language, but I share my own personal story. I don't add to it. I don't steal somebody else's story. It's all mine. Thank you. And any questions?
Yes, I can understand what you're saying. I can feel your pain and what you about your stories, but you know what? I am not a victim of the residential. I wasn't taken, and I was hid in a bush by my grandparents on each side that I had. But yet, I still feel it. It still has an effect on me, even though I never end up in the residential. And I can see the hurt, pain, and the biases, and even when I go into town, I can still hear that, and I can still feel it. And I'm still dealing with it today. So then dealing with the after effect of, yes, resident reconciliation hasn't even started.
Yeah.
They haven't untouched what that really means, and that's what makes me upset. When is it gonna start? When do I visually see it? When does my heart visually see reconciliation? And it doesn't. Even though I'm not a victim of residential scoop or, any scoops that come on and then pass them. But that's where I've through books and through the people like you, I'm able to understand the feelings of not seeing your parent and being taken away from your parent. And I've worked with child welfare for 28 years. And I know the court system. I've rescinded my PGO, and I went to court. And I know through my experience and through my heart, my feelings, using my heart, that I'll be able to understand what child welfare is doing to the children today. And that really hurts. So we're like, no matter where Native person goes, we're still traumatized by everything that the government throws at us, and still today, yet we haven't started. So it makes me angry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So true. I appreciate your comment. We need to do, even within Stoney Health, we need to do more cultural training such as this one. We need to understand each other. We need to have that dialogue. Not just come in, hello, goodbye, see you tomorrow. There's more. You are working in our community. You need to understand us more of where we come from, who we are as Indigenous peoples. I've noticed that not just here, but other programs as well. They say, I've worked here 5 years, I've worked here 10 years. I know where you're coming from. I understand it. No, you don't. You try. Yes, I respect you for that. I appreciate you for that. But it's not an overnight journey. We're still hurting. There's still a lot of pain, not with just the survivors, but our children. Look, my adult children are, they have addictions. Why? Because I wasn't the mother they wanted me to be, because of what happened to me. I also never said I love you to my children. And when I sobered up, when I started my journey, I told them, I am sorry I wasn't the mother that you wanted me to be. When the school bus came, I was drunk. When they got on the bus, I went back, went to the liquor store. When they got off the bus, I was drunk again. That's how I lived my life. I was an alcoholic. Now I'm recovering, and I've lost 3 grandsons to overdose. Fentanyl overdose. The youngest one was 60. And now with my granddaughter gone like this, it really kind of puts me on walking on eggshells. Because I've been through that pain with my grandchildren. I don't want to go through that again. But when my grandchildren passed away from overdose, I found myself blaming myself again. I wasn't much of a grandma. What did I do? I should have gave them more love. I could have, kept popping up. But then somebody said, you can't keep blaming yourself. You're on your own personal journey. Take a breathe once throughout the day and say, Jeanette, you're beautiful. You are on this beautiful healing journey to share with people that will listen. And I still hear that voice. And that's why my many positive remark throughout the day that I go by. When I wasn't drinking, I think when I first started working for Stoney Health, that stigma was still there because I was a mean alcoholic. Nobody wanted to come talk to me. Everybody stayed away. I think it's still sometimes, but everybody stayed away. They didn't want to talk to me because they knew me. They were, I think they were scared. They stayed away because when I drank, what happened in residential school was within my fights. I didn't care where I got hurt. There were guys challenged me to fight. I defended myself. That's how it was known in the community. And when I first worked here, they stayed away. But now, I get calls and they come to me, they talk to me, and I really appreciate that. And I share my healing journey with them. I still hear now and then, what's that alcoholic doing here? She's an alcoholic. Why is she the health center liaison? It doesn't bother me anymore. It used to, but it doesn't bother me anymore. Yes, I am an alcoholic that managed to get a degree in law enforcement. That's my story. Any questions?
I missed the beginning, so I'm sorry for coming in late, but I think you have a very powerful story that you share. It's probably very relatable to a lot of people, and I think you can make so many connections from your journey that people need to hear someone else say out loud so that they know they can say it for themselves too. But my question for you, because you mentioned the RBC Bank in Cochrane, if you're able or comfortable, what are some things that you notice there that make you feel seen? Like, what is it about that space and the people, or maybe like the changes they've made that you...
Just the atmosphere, the acknowledgement of truth and reconciliation on their billboard.
Okay.
And how it's just Indigenous peoples, and you feel a part of it. And the service, the friendly service, I'd say. But the other banks aren't. No, I don't see that. Sad to say, but still healthcare clinics, I don't see that as well. And we've been, racism has been a part of our lives. And it kind of comes to a point where it kind of, how should I say it?
Just live with it.
No,
Just accept it. It's there. It'll never go away.
It sticks with you, and in return, you find yourself going against other races. That's how I see it. You learn to be racist. You learn. You live with it. You get strength from it, but you also learn from it, and you do that too. I find myself doing that as well.
I don't think racism ever ends because the new generation don't know, there's more exploitation today than before. But racism is always going to be, no matter where you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's part of life. You just accept it, and that's just the way it is. That's the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it. That's how I see it. That's how I carry myself.
I have interracial grandchildren. My grandchildren are Mexican. So that was a part of my life where I never understood the Mexican race. But now that I've understood them, and my daughter's married to one, I accept it. They're part of us. They're Indigenous peoples as well. Well, my grandchildren are Aztec, and the Aztec tribe are one of the few tribes that don't have so many people left in their tribe. what I hope I've covered everything. If you have questions, if there's something that's still
I just have one more question. So being in a healthcare setting, working in Stoney Health, especially as a non-Indigenous person, what are steps and what can people do to make it more accepting, more welcoming, and being more understanding of culture and the way that Stoney people need to be cared for, if that makes any sense?
Talk Stoney.
I wish. I was it. I want to. I know. I'm back.
I think the part, like, last week I'll share, a client cried because of a situation. So I sat down and prayed, and I saw how the situation changed so fast within that hour. And prayer has always been a part of my people, a part of us. And it would be, like, I appreciate being able to pray for that. Pray, and in that moment to be able to pray, I appreciated that. Instead of being, I know about confidentiality and I can't always be in all situations, but in that instance, being able to pray for was overwhelming. It felt good knowing that I helped a person that day through prayer, and that was my first reaction. Being raised in this community is we pray, no matter what we go through. That was our first reaction, is prayer, smudging, ceremony. I have my own personal ceremony people that help me, that guide me through my journey, and I turn to them for guidance. They're not from this nation, but I also have support in the nation too as well that guide me when I'm gonna smudge, what I need to do so I don't make a mistake. Because when I first started working here, I didn't want to smudge because that was the protocol. You had to earn it, and late Philomene was my guidance, and I used to talk to her a lot. I told her I've been asked to smudge at work, but I know that I'm not ready, and she said, if you're not ready, don't do it. So I didn't smudge right away because of what I believed in and what she taught me. And then she said, okay, you're ready. You're ready to do the smudge and to help people with smudge. That's that kind of. I answer your question.
Yes, thank you so much.
Recognizing our culture and our traditional ways in every program would be, I'd say, would be the best step forward.
Yes.
Any more questions?
Oh, Jeanette, well, thank you for sharing. I'm worked in different communities, half of my nursing career, and I definitely would say, like, over the last 10 years, maybe a little bit more, there's actually been more steps in mainstream community to engage in reconciliation, but it sure comes with heaviness, especially when you discuss, like, your granddaughter is missing. Like, when things like that happen, my son went missing not very long ago, and I speak about it with a lot of heaviness because, like, our people, when they go missing, we have, like, the echoes of that missing and murdered presence.
Mm-hmm.
And then many of us, like when we were dealing with our clients in home care or any community health. We know a lot of our outcomes are so challenged by like poverty. Like we know in our health roles, like we measure things around determinants of health. But many of our people, like we're encountering like overdoses, right, at such a young age. And so we're seeing the loss of adults that are going, that are passing quicker than the elders. And so at the same time, we had at one time before the colonization, we had such a spiritual knowledge that it was so spiritual. We were so, at one time, Indigenous people had such a pure health. So many of us who are in these roles today, like that, we feel that we have to educate and to share these stories. It really does come from kind of an ability, I guess, to live in two worlds, and it can be really heavy for us at times to share that. So I want to thank you, and I really hope you find your granddaughter.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'll be speaking at the health sciences at Foothouse this afternoon. I'll be taking off for Edmonton for a week to attend the National Elders Gathering, where I will be representing Stoney Nakoda as a nation. I'll be the only elder from Morley, and another one attending that gathering. And I hope to share when I return. I went there 2 years ago, and we went into sessions. One session was always only about health. Another session was justice. Another session was education. And environment, that was where I think I stayed most of that time. Because I believe in recycling. I do that all the time. My jars, my cans, everything. It was a very interesting gathering, and throughout the day, if you felt down and out, the smudge was ongoing. It never was put out until it was in our room. The smudge was going. If you felt bad or felt like you were giving in, you just went in that room, and there was an elder sitting there ready to speak and have smudge with you. And that's what I enjoyed about that gathering. So that's where I'm going to be for the week, and I'll be back Sunday. So I
Well,
won't be
thank you
around
so
all
much,
week.
Jeanette. And that was so amazing. Thank you.
Did you want to add anything?
No, thank you, Ishniish. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. I'm so happy that we could get Jeanette. Jeanette. Sorry, I'm so happy to get Jeanette to be part of Lunch and Learn. So we're planning to keep this going, to keep Lunch and Learn going. So we did send out the survey. So thank Ishniish, we got so much response back on the topics that people want to learn about. So please send me if you have any topics that you want to be covered, but let me know and we will put it together. We want it to be fun, informative, and just, educational. Thank you so much, Ishniish. Oh, there you go.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, and there's donuts, there's coffee. I'm sorry it came late, but there's coffee. Help yourself to donuts. And thank you so much for coming.